What's a story where the bad guys are actually completely 100th right, to the point where it's weird the story keeps calling them the bad guys? After being forced to watch this multiple times by the girlfriend, both Gilmore Girls and nearly everyone they dated, especially Rory, how dare he not let me cheat on him or randomly string him along for years? Mr. Belding from Saved by the Bell. Zach Morris is a fucking sociopath, and his friends enabled and in some cases cheerfully alongside him. All Iceman ever wanted was for Maverick to respect safety protocols instead of hot-dogging all the time. Iceman in Top Gun. I used to work in naval aviation, and he was totally right. Maverick was dangerous and unreliable. Edit. I really wasn't expecting this comment to blow up. I fully understand the meaning of bad guy, but in this instance, I took it to mean anything from antagonist, villain, foil, or adversary, but this is Reddit and people are super pedantic and literal. My role was as a naval flight surgeon, so besides being my squadron's doctor, I flew in the backseat with them, sat on mishap investigation boards, like the one depicted in the movie, and generally helped determine fitness for flight duty. Maverick wouldn't have lasted long with the antics he pulled and his personality. But where is the fun and drama in that? He really just seems calm and minding his own business in the original. Professional even. Of course, Maverick was the bad guy. Who plays volleyball in jeans? Honestly, this is confirmed by the text itself and reconfirmed in the sequel. The villain of the Top Gun is Maverick's ego. Honestly, watching Top Gun, I never got the impression he was supposed to be the bad guy more so, just someone Maverick has to prove wrong. He never becomes an obstacle for Marv, just a reminder of his shortcomings as a pilot. Mr. Wilson. I was a tween when the movie came out. I was infuriated when Martha had to go make sandwiches when the steaks got paint all over them. But to Dennis, I have a thing against Dennis' parents. That kid's effed up and I blame them. Wow, you just unlocked a memory for me. I used to watch that movie so much when I was little. In hindsight, Dennis fucking up the flower blooming is kinda brutal too. That weird episode of Friends where Phoebe is convinced her dead mother is reincarnated as a cat, so she tries to steal it from its owners, and Ross is presented as the bad guy for pointing out how ridiculous this is. I read that this plot was actually suggested by one of the main writers who had recently lost their own parent. Nobody wanted to point out that it was stupid because they didn't want to seem insensitive, so they all just went with it. Another episode where Phoebe says she doesn't believe in evolution and even gravity, and Ross cannot let that slide, and somehow we are supposed to think he's the bad guy. His career was literally studying evolution, but when he tries to carefully and nicely explain the facts, somehow it is portrayed as he is the problem. He doesn't even ridicule Phoebe, like Chandler does to Joy so many times. He tries to explain evolution to Phoebe with examples and models, but somehow we are supposed to think he is insufferable. I was totally on Team Ross that episode. When you are close friends with someone, you don't let them be ignorant on such basic things. Imagine a doctor being okay with his close friends spouting anti-vax nonsense. Jack and the Beanstalk. Some dick finds the giant's house and starts taking all his best stuff. Also very weird that magic beans has become shorthand for like bad investment or stupid decision. The magic beans were exactly as advertised and had an amazing ROI for Jack. Todd and Margot in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. I can't imagine living next to someone so inconsiderate. He even caused literal property damage, yet they are still uptight to jerks. Every single Donald Duck cartoon. Dude usually just wants to chill out without being bothered, and there's always someone bothering him, and then he gets blamed for standing up for his own needs. The older I get, the more I empathize with Donald Duck. Disney understood that back in the day, too, his cartoons were actually more popular than Mickey's because he was more relatable. Yuck, when Disney was asked to make a cartoon explaining how income tax helped the war effort during Hawaii, they chose Donald because he would be relatably frustrated with the whole process at first, but learn how it worked. That's why Donald's song goes, "Who is never wrong but always right? Who never dreams of starting a fight? Who gets stuck with all the bad luck? No one but Donald Duck." His entire existence in the cartoon is for people to laugh at his bad luck. I have a saying around our Disney-obsessed household, saying I'm getting Donald Duck today when everything goes wrong, especially in Mickey's Twice Upon a Christmas. He just wanted a small break from the holidays to enjoy a cup of hot cocoa. Didn't know you're supposed to be against Donald. The entire season of Inhumans. Maximus is right, is attempting to free slaves. But the show is telling us to cheer for Black Bolt and the royal family. The ethics in that show are fucking bonkers, man. For those who don't know, everyone in the Inhuman society gets exposed to gas which randomly mutates them. If the gas gives you a sexy mutation, you get to stay in your home with your family. But if the gas gives you an ugly mutation, you get sent to the mines as a lifelong slave, and the good guys are the people who uphold this system. And the bad guy is the person who thinks that the system is wrong. What the actual fuck, man? How did that shit get greenlit? Red Foreman was right. Eric and his friends were all dumbasses that need a boot in the ass. I agree, but he looked over Laurie misdeeds too much. Never really called the bad guy, but Reese Witherspoon is definitely the bad guy in Sweet Home Alabama. Her New York fiancé is a super good guy and puts up with a crazy bee the whole movie. I'm like 15 minutes into Thor Love and Thunder, and I completely understand Christian Bale's character. Most heist movies. Oh, he's doing it to afford medicine for his sick child. Okay, but he just killed 14 security guards, none of whom will be going home to their families now. Lol, in Once Upon a Time, Snow White's character is like wrecking henchmen and random nobody guard types W her bow and arrow, definitely killing Plow. Damn, she gets to the most evil character at the time, the literal evil queen and reason for all the bad shit going on. What does Snow White do? Decides now that she won't stoop to the queen's level, and she will choose mercy. Police Academy. They let a bunch of violent, unstable, dishonest deadbeats into the police force, and the chief of police was supposed to be ok with that. He was doing the public a favor by trying to weed out the worst one. It's a different take, but Mahoney didn't even want to be there in the first place. But I think it was court-ordered or something. In fact, most of them were misfits and probably never ever should have worn a uniform. Any rom-com where the main character cheats on their partner with a new love interest that they end up with, plus the setup that they do to make the audience dislike the current partner in order to make the cheating more palatable, is often super contrived. I watched one recently where the only offense the current partner committed was to step briefly out of the main character's company Christmas party to put the finishing touches on closing a huge sales deal at his job. I guess it was supposed to be movie shorthand for him being more interested in his work than in her, but the writers were super lazy about it because his choice seemed pretty reasonable in the moment, and he was an otherwise likable character. He totally got shafted. I was reading a Christmas Hallmark movie story from the other side, where two Wall Street people who are working hard, staying up nights to save up money for future marriage, and kids realize their partners went away to a small town and cheated on them with a charming local on a whim on Christmas Day. So, they ditch their partners and form a power couple and buy a penthouse in New York and get their happy ending. This is a wild pull, lol, but High School Musical. I'd be pissed if I worked my ass off for years to get the lead in a musical only for them to give it to someone else who didn't technically attend the audition. Not to forget that Troy is the villain in Heston 2 for trying to sort out his future as a college basketball player rather than fucking about. In High School Musical 2, they were all such brats about having to actually work at the job they got and not getting to participate in an event at the country club because they had to work that night. They're not members there, they're staff. Plus the guy was totally right to be mad at Gabriella for leaving a lifeguard shift early unless there was a replacement who took over. Yeah, in any other movie, they would have been the heroes and the jocks would be the villains. That iceberg in Titanic is just minding its own business when it gets knocked on the head by the sex raft. Peter Rabbit. He was a thief, a glutton, a trespasser, a burglar. A naughty little rabbit. Meanwhile, Mr. McGregor only wanted to produce something of value and feed his family. Perry Bible Fellowship's take. That guy in B movie. Girlfriend leaves him for a fucking bee. Said B proceeds to gaslight him into thinking he's crazy anyway. That movie sure was weird. Scrolling down, this exact thread happened yesterday with all the same answers. Mrs. Doubtfire, Magneto, B-Movie, Walter Peck from Ghostbusters, The Rock, Ed Harris, etc. Law-abiding citizen does it well from both characters' perspective. Yes, but that ending was horseshit. Mrs. Doubtfire because Pierce Brosnan was really nice and was a lonely, middle-aged man who wanted a family, but Mrs. Doubtfire was so mean to him and even tried to kill him, with Pepper knowing he was allergic. Don't forget a drive-by fruiting. Mrs. Doubtfire and the Santa Claus have terrible messages about respecting visitation rights. I mean, Daniel was just a bad person from the beginning. The crazy party at his home after getting fired, the impersonation of an entire different person who attempts to influence his kids and ex-wife's decisions, especially about her love life. He blames his ex at the end for the harsh sentence handed down by the judge. Then he gets what he wants as the wife reverses that decision. Hades in mythology. Most of the time seen as the bad guy because he rules over the underworld, but he was sent there and he's just doing his job, maintain the souls inside, deliver punish when needed, etc. And Zeus is a horrible guy. Hades is one of the most mild gods in there. When Hades came to realize how messed up the world was, now that he had accidentally caused winter to be a thing, he used his powers to safeguard all the seeds of the world beneath the earth during that season so that they would be ready to bloom when his wife returned to her mother. Name one other Greek god that ever admitted to making a mistake and worked to correct it for the sake of humans.